Hey there everybody, it's great to have you joining me for this demo where we're going to go ahead and focus on the manual steps required to build a web application. Now this demo can be really helpful to provide you with experience of the different tasks of development that you may not be familiar with. But even as an Azure administrator, or certainly if you're going to work with DevOps, these are things that you do want to understand because that understanding can help you with important context when you are setting up the infrastructure that is needed to host applications. So to follow along within this demo, you are going to have your own Azure subscription ready to go, and please make sure you've logged in to a browser right now. But to simplify the process of getting this demo environment ready, I've also included a click to deploy resource. So what I want you to do is make sure that you're logged into the browser that has that click to deploy resource ready to go, or if you've got that in a separate browser like I do, that you take a copy of the deploy button link, you go ahead and open up a new tab and you can paste in that link. Now this link is going to make it easy for you to set up a virtual machine, virtual network, and other resources that we're going to use throughout this demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the steps here from that click to deploy template. I'm just going to create a new resource group. We're going to call this web VM1-RG. I'm going to place that into a region that suits my needs. You can place that wherever suits yours. So Australia East for me. I'll keep the VM size nice and small at a standard B2S size that isn't going to cost too much. And I can really go ahead and leave all of the other settings as is as default. I am of course going to need a username and password, so I'll go ahead and enter that now. All right, when you're ready to go, you can go ahead and click on Next for Review and Create. Make sure that validation passes, and then you can go ahead and click on Create. That'll take a moment of time, so I'll pause the video and pop back once we're ready to go. Okay, once that deployment has complete, we can go ahead and click on the Go to Resource Group option, and let's just see what we've got here. We've got a virtual machine that's going to be configured with some Visual Studio and other related development tools, and it's deployed to a virtual network with a network security group. Now that network security group is going to allow us to have inbound access to this VM via RDP and via web as well. So if you would like to make this more secure, do jump into that NSG and just lock down the inbound addressing to your IP address. All right, so what we actually want to go ahead and do now is connect to this virtual machine, and we're going to download a web application, we're going to build it, and we're going to deploy it. Now I will just call out that to make this demo easy, we're going to do everything on this machine. But in the real world, what you would actually do is you would be developing and building your application on maybe a development machine. And then of course you're going to have a separate web server that you're going to have for your production purposes. We're just going to do that all on one single machine just to make it nice and easy. So browse into that virtual machine, we can go ahead and grab the public IP address. I'm going to take a copy of that. And then I'm going to browse across to a remote desktop client, and you can use whatever remote desktop client you like. You could even go through the portal if you prefer. I'm going to click on Add a PC. I'll enter in the details here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Add. Okay, we've got that ready to go, so let's double click on that. I'm going to enter in my username and password, and then we can go ahead and log in. Now, once you've successfully logged in, you can feel free to close any of those annoying pop-ups that do appear. We won't need any of that. What we're going to do firstly is download a sample web application that we can use for the build and deploy tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Microsoft Edge. Now, once again, you can close any annoying pop-ups that do appear. Then you can go ahead and paste in the URL that I have included for the web application. So I'm going to do that right now. It's going to download that application. I'm going to click on the Open option. Let's go ahead and close the browser. Now we want to extract this application. I'm just going to take a shortcut here, drag a copy of that to the desktop. Once again, this isn't really something you'd be doing in production in this fashion, but it's going to suit our purposes. So I've now got that application on my desktop. You'll see it's all the source code that we would have put together as a developer. But we can't use this yet if we actually want to deploy this on this server as a web application for a couple of reasons. One, it hasn't been compiled, and two, we don't actually have any web server capabilities installed yet. So let's go ahead with the first step. What I'm actually going to do is just hold down the Shift key, right click on that folder, and you'll see we now get an option here, Open PowerShell window here. So that's what we're going to do. That's going to open PowerShell, and it's going to have it working in the directory that contains our application. So if we go ahead and type ls, we can see all of the different files that we were just looking at. Now, what I'm going to do just to show that we can make some changes and compile everything is I'm going to navigate into the pages directory. I'm going to do ls once again. And I'm actually just going to type Notepad to keep this nice and simple, and we'll change the index.cshtml file and press enter. Now, what you can do to just see that you can make some changes and compile your own application is enter in any text here that you like. I'm going to say, welcome to AussieMart version 2. I'm just going to save those changes, go ahead, close that. And now let's browse back one step. And what we want to do is we want to test that this application actually works. So what we can actually do is go ahead and use the .NET run command. We're just going to run our app and make sure it's working as expected. I've specified -- URLs with the address, localhost, port 80, just so I don't need to have any SSL configuration. Okay, so I can go ahead and press enter. That's going to build the application and it's going to run it locally. Once the application is successfully running, what you can do is you can open up the Microsoft Edge browser once again, and we can just go ahead and go to http://localhost and press enter. Okay, fantastic. That application is working as expected. So we've seen that the app's working. It's got our version 2 changes that we created. So what we actually want to do now is we want to build this and we want to configure IIS on this machine to act as a web server, and then we can deploy it to IIS. So I'm going to close down this browser for now. We're going to press Control-C to exit the .NET run command, and I'm just going to go ahead and clear this screen. So now that we're happy our web application is working as expected, we need to do a couple of commands. We can type in .NET build, and that's going to build our application, and we can type in .NET publish, which is going to package it up and make sure that it's got all of the files and components that is required to actually deploy this to a production server. Now, normally you're going to have additional arguments, and if you're using another language, you might be using different commands here. But the key point is what we're doing is we are building and preparing and packaging our application into some special files with .NET. That's actually going to be DLL files that we can go ahead and we can use to deploy that to a web server. So we've got those files ready to go. What we want to do now is just clear that screen once again, and we're going to set up this machine as an actual web server. So to do that, I'm going to paste in the command that is included in the instructions that is just going to use PowerShell's install Windows feature commandlet to actually get the web server role, including any management tools. So this will take a moment of time. I'll pause the video and we'll take a look shortly. Okay, excellent. We've got that web server role ready to go. Now there's another step we need to complete to actually have this web server support the type of code that we have built for the AussieMart web application. And you'll see that I've included a link that you can go to download that code. So we're going to go to the .NET Core Windows Runtime Bundle, type in that link at the top, and then it should actually automatically start the download for you. If it doesn't, you can go ahead and click on the manual download option. Once that's complete, we can go ahead and run that executable, and that's going to allow us to install that bundle. Okay, so I'll close down the browser here. I'm going to agree to the terms and click on install. Now you might be wondering, why are we going through the steps manually of actually setting up a web server? Couldn't I have included that within the click to deploy template? And yes, I certainly could have. We could have scripted all of these tasks, but I wanted you to understand the different components that are required. Because if you're going to use DevOps pipelines, or maybe you're just working as an Azure administrator, understanding these different components can really help to provide you with important foundational context for various different roles that you might be performing. For example, even if you are working with Azure App Service where you don't need to maintain the underlying operating system and infrastructure, you've now got a better appreciation of what they're talking about with the different runtime environments that you can select from. And if you're going to work on DevOps pipelines, you now know the different things that you might need to automate to actually set up your environment to ensure that it's not taking a long time to go from development through to production. Okay, so that installation is complete. Let's close that down. Let's actually minimize PowerShell as well. And what we want to do is we now want to deploy this to our IIS installation that we've just configured. So we can go into the bin folder, go into debug, .NET 6, and choose the publish location. And this is where we've got all of the files and folders that are required as part of the compiled application. You'll see we don't have those index pages that we edited or anything like that. We've got the compiled AussieMart web application. So we can go ahead, we can take a copy of all of these files, and we can also open up a new window here by right-clicking and choosing File Explorer. Then we can go to the C drive, we can go to inetpub, which is the IIS root folder. We can go into the www root folder and we can go ahead and we can paste in those files. Now, if we open up the Edge browser once again, and then we go to localhost, excellent, everything's working. But this time we're not using the .NET Run application. We've actually got a compiled hosted application that's running on this system. So to take that one step further, let's browse back to the Azure portal. Let's go ahead and take a copy of the public IP again. We'll open up a new page and we're going to paste in that IP address. And fantastic, there you have it. You've got your own web application that you've taken from some source code, you've built it, you've deployed it, and you've even actually gone through the process of setting up a web server as well. So folks, I hope that by going through these tasks manually, you've now got a better understanding of some important information that can help you in a range of different roles. Thanks for joining me, everybody. That's a wrap.